Hey guys, welcome back to the Friday Vlog, where we discuss activity that goes on here with the BuzzWeaver channel. That includes things like current events, headlines that are in the news, social media, pop culture, technology, and items of interest that come up during the week that allow us to have a little bit of a dialogue. If this is your first time here to the channel, welcome. If you are a returning visitor or a valued subscriber and or follower, I want to thank all of you guys for your continued support. So this week I did come out with the review from New Leaf 300 milligram full spectrum CBD oil. You guys can check that out up there in the top right hand corner, and make sure you stay tuned because I will do some additional videos on CBD oil, some of the higher potencies at 500 and 1.5K. So make sure you guys check those out. We were right is the title of this Friday vlog. But before we get started, I was interrupted by a canvasser. And we get these canvassers as many as 3 a week. Now, as you know, I record these typically on Wednesday, and here I already have 2. I anticipate getting 1 more, probably a 3rd this week. And essentially what it is these canvassers that come along, and I'm going to assume that they're probably with either party. Now, this young woman actually came to the door, and I spoke to her for a few moments, and she said that she was with the Purdue campaign. And then, of course, she asked me if I was the particular resident, and as well as if I have voted or would vote for David. I didn't give her too much information. I didn't, because, you know, as you can see with these flyers, it could be either campaign. I don't ever know who they are. Sometimes they just get out of their car and they just come up to the door and hang these on there, or even hang them on the mailbox. I'm not sure what the legal parameters are as far as where they can place them. I'm not entirely sure. They can't put them in our mailboxes, but for the most part, they've come in cars. I've seen them come in all sorts of different cars. I've seen them on foot. Sometimes there's several people. Sometimes it's just one individual, like this young woman. She had her phone out. I'm going to assume that she had registered voters listed on her phone, and she was just going door to door. Perhaps she was coming to registered Republicans. I don't know. I didn't see her go across the street, but then I'm shooting the video, so I wasn't actually watching what all she was doing. But suffice it to say, we have seen a ramped up kind of canvassing and or just campaign activity here in our area, or at least in my area, which is South Metro Atlanta. We voted red here, but our neighbor counties were blue, because we are the furthest south county that is still considered Metro Atlanta. So it's interesting to see how active the campaigns are. We are actually seeing, I've had friends send me pictures and images of cars from out of state where these individuals are also canvassing or getting people to register to vote. So when these people come to like certain people's homes, or they're in a neighborhood, like say they sometimes park at like at a grocery store area or at a park or somewhere where they can canvass an area. And you can see one of them I got the other day one was from New York, for example, and we have some neighboring states. It's not unusual for us to see a lot of out-of-state tags in Metro Atlanta. I've seen tags as far as Canada and, of course, California, even Alaska, here in the Metro Atlanta area. So as far as Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee, South Carolina, North Carolina, Florida, very common. New York equally as common, although it's very far north. Occasionally I'll see someone as far as Maine, but they are in the area. I mean, people come and drive through, and they're probably going to Florida or coming back from Florida. Sometimes they're traveling through Georgia. Sometimes they stop here in Atlanta sometimes they usually stop for Braves games when the Atlanta Braves are playing, when they were doing really, really well. They did really well this year, but of course, because of the pandemic, they weren't always playing in our city. And as you saw, the playoffs were in Texas. And many games that were being played weren't even in the cities of the respected teams that were playing. But nonetheless, as of this particular section, I just wanted to let you know that it was interrupted by yet another canvasser. Continuing with the We Were Right theme, you guys can check out up there in the top right hand corner. For those of you who are regular visitors or subscribers to the channel, you guys know that we touched on many of these topics, at least within the last 2 years that I have been producing these videos. So I do appreciate your guys' likes, your shares, and your comments, especially all of you guys from Odyssey, Rumble, and from Parlay. Wow. Amazing the engagement I'm getting from Parlay. Thank you to all of you who are on Parlay, and Minds as well, and Gab, that participate here on the channel. Your participation is, of course, always appreciated, because as of right now, many of us who do commentary, or more specifically conservative commentary, our content isn't being discovered via SEO or search parameters, because what YouTube likes to call authorized users, or the mainstream media, are typically the ones that people are going to get at the very top of their screen when they do a search on politics or the particular candidates within the election of 2020. So you guys are going to get those before creators of the channels or creators, because we were the ones who actually built YouTube. It wasn't these mainstream media outlets or anybody in the entertainment or in the sports industry. But YouTube wants to become the next cable host or the next cable station or entertainment station, very much like Netflix or Hulu. So there isn't as much as an incentive for many creators nowadays, because there's a lot more criteria that many creators have to meet to be able to even get to the partnership program, as well as to generate AdSense. So your guys' participation is always appreciated. And of course, below this video, there are links to my affiliate links. For example, with Amazon, I feel that that's kind of like the less intrusive way for you guys to help contribute to the channel, is by simply, if you are an Amazon Prime user or you use Amazon frequently, then these links will allow you to gain that access, and then you can just freely shop however you want to, and that always helps out the channel. And all of you guys who do that, all of that effort is greatly appreciated. But we have been talking about this topic for quite some time, particularly the red mirage. You guys may recall back in August, we talked about how on election night, it would appear that President Trump was in this huge lead, which he was, and then suddenly all of the mail-in ballots would then, obviously it stopped in some states. They just stopped counting votes, and then they generated and brought in the mail-in ballots. Now, of course, I have to be very cautious with how I frame this, because last Friday's vlog, I had to get a human review. And even with the CBD video that you see up there in the top right-hand corner, I also had to get a human review, because YouTube is really cracking down on our presentations and information. And I try to keep our information as concise as possible. Naturally, it's going to have a conservative bias on it, because I am a conservative. I am not a Republican. For those who may be wondering, I am not a registered member of the Republican Party any longer. I saw very much what was going on right now happening back in 2004, and it is kind of disappointing to see what we're going through right now. That's why I wasn't as forthcoming for this young woman who was out canvassing. She may have been with David Perdue's campaign, I don't know, but I wasn't going to just volunteer information for her. But I did find it very interesting that she had everything there on her phone, all the information, probably who the registered voters are. And so when I say these things to you guys, when we talk about the canvassing that was conducted, the Democrats going house to house like this young woman was. I'm not saying she's a Democrat. I'm just saying that they would go house to house and they would ask people, did you get your ballot? Did you complete your ballot? We even saw the one video from James O'Keefe, which is obviously very controversial. It shows a particular person in a particular state. Yes, I can't mention either one and go into the specifics because of the flagging that YouTube is doing. But suffices to say that this individual was harvesting ballots. It was very clear. It was very definitive. And of course, the mainstream media likes to harp on Veritas. I think I can say Veritas, and maybe James O'Keefe. I'm not really sure. I may get a flag for saying either of those two companies, or his company and then himself. But he is, obviously a professional journalist out actually doing, real journalism, not going out doing these investigations. You've heard a lot about him. We even heard the soundbite that he grabbed from one of the executives from CEO, one of the directors that we have talked about here before. So all of this content is here on the channel. We have talked about it for quite some time. So when the left and my friends on the left like to give me a hard time on social media, I have to remind them that I am not a Republican, as well as the fact that I am not on the left. So I am not anticipating any mental or psychological trauma because of someone who is the president. I have lived through an Obama and a Joe Biden administration. I have seen how Obama tried to keep Joe Biden out of the limelight for particular reasons. And I'm talking about his apparent cognitive decline. And when I talk about his cognitive decline, I in no way mean to disrespect him as a human being or to disparage the man. It is quite clear that he has a tendency to struggle formulating his ideas. If you look at some of his work from even 3 years ago, you can see that he is much more acute. He is much more able to communicate clearly. He's more articulate. His thoughts are a little bit more clear and he's able to enunciate and provide the information that he wants to say without some sort of gaffe, as they like to call it, or say that he stutters. We can clearly see what it's like for someone to be in decline. So I don't have anything against Joe as a human being. I think that as we saw, like in the Atlantic from, I think it was back in August, maybe even later, where they said, Joe, we just need your corporeal presence. And we have talked about this. We have talked about how Joe Biden is essentially a Trojan horse for the establishment. As President Trump likes to say, and as we have talked about here, and as I just mentioned with the canvassers and so forth of people out there, we have always talked about how the Democrats have worked alongside the mainstream media, have worked alongside the tech giants, special interest, and Trump detractors to ensure that everyone, or as many as they could get, disliked Trump as much as they did. And they were saying that, we got this for you, Joe. Don't worry about it. We learned from our mistakes with Hillary. We're going to make sure that you're the one who is going to be elected this year because we have a plan, we have a program. Now, this is all anecdotal, of course. And of course, people will criticize me for saying that I am being politically biased. But I think any cogent person, common sense thinking individual who can just sit back and kind of look at what has happened, what has transpired, that can easily conclude that there was some activity. In other words, advantages were taking, or there was individuals taking advantage of the pandemic, taking advantage of the mail-in ballots, because like Gabe said here in Georgia from the Secretary of State's office, said that we have not used this form of mail-in ballot system in over 20 years. So it caught a lot of people unprepared for how this was all going to be conducted. And as you saw in Pennsylvania, they were changing rules at the last minute. Now, this is argued not only in Pennsylvania, but other states, that rules were changed at the last minute, whether or not signatures they would match signatures, whether or not it had to be in a particular envelope, whether or not the postal dates would fall under a certain criteria. So these are tangible things that we know have happened. So when Texas was filing their lawsuit, it wasn't based on some loose, flimsy evidence or information. This was based on what was actually happened in these states with them changing the rules at the last minute. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the Friday vlog for this week. A lot of activity going on here, and I'm a bit under the weather. So I want to thank all of you guys, of course, for your continued support, your likes, your shares, and your comments. And I hope everyone is preparing for the holidays, or at least feeling that holiday spirit a bit. I'm not so much into that right now, but we'll see how things continue to unfold. I know that this election has been kind of a damper on many of those who are Trump supporters or within the Republican Party or conservatives. So I can totally understand if you guys aren't as uplifted this particular season. It has been a very strange year. But thank you guys, all of you out there on alternative media, those who aren't on YouTube, of course. I want to thank all of you guys for your continued support. That would be Rumble, that would be Minds, that would be Gab, that would be Parlay, that would be Odyssey. Thank all of you guys on these alternative sites for supporting the channel and this new content that you guys are seeing on these platforms. All of your guys' support is greatly appreciated here. Thank you so very much. And of course, here on YouTube, that would be the channel icon appearing right there on the screen to subscribe. And you can click on that to get notifications and then indicate that you want to get notified when there is content here on the channel, whether that be just content that I cover here or even the Friday vlog. And I will see you guys right there behind that camera next week.